The Ins and Outs of Freelancing, April 6th, 2016. No, I don't need that on because they'll cause feedback. Hello everybody, welcome to yet another design work, our panel discussion. It's all about the career of being a designer. My name is Rick Byrne, I'm one of the programming co-chairs here at the AIGA. So before we start off and bring our wonderful panelists out, I'd love to thank our volunteers. Volunteers, raise your hands, who put all the chairs together, the food. Where are you volunteers? Oh, there's Jen. Hiding. Also, I'd like to thank Red Cube, who are videoing tonight's discussion. So thank you, that's them. Raise your hands at the back there, Red Cube. Fantastic. I'd also like to thank TCG, who are in the far corner. Wave. Woo! So they have salary guides for 2016. So after this, if you all rush over, and they have lots of copies, so rush over and grab a copy, and you can compare your current salary, and you can either be very bitter or very happy, because it gives a salary range. They brought extras. I don't know, Juice Shop was meant to come tonight and drop off some samples, but I'm not sure that they did. But I'll shout out to them, but they're not here. Other AIG events coming up. We have a tour of Code for America on April the 20th. That's, I think, 2 Wednesdays' time. They do a lot of non-profit work to try and get coding legislature and training in schools and colleges and various institutions across America. Nice non-profit for a studio tour. And then the next design work is during Design Week. It's June 8th. It's actually going to be in the middle of the day, so don't show up here that evening because we'll be closed. And it's all about working in a startup. So that should be quite interesting. And as you can see, over the course of this year, we're having different talks on the different parts of the design community or the different phases in your career or the different sort of modes you might be in as your design career goes on. So, with that in mind, I'd like our panelists to come out, our 4 panelists. We have Peter Noel, Ariana Orland, Tina Hardison, and Lisa Gabello. So, now that we're all here, what I'd like you to do is, basically, before I have you guys give a brief bio of yourselves, I'm just going to show of hands in the room. So, who here is currently freelancing? So about half the room. Who is thinking of going freelancing, but not currently a freelancer?
This is a safe space.
This is a safe space. You won't have to stand up and say your name. And who here is thinking of hiring freelancers, which includes the creative group, by the way. They're here to hire freelancers. I see 1 hand back there, 2 hands, 3. So a few people hiring freelancers. So with that in mind, I'm going to just poll the audience, and I'll take, say, 3 or 4 people's sort of reason for being here tonight. Does anyone want to volunteer their hand to answer, like, why they're here tonight? I see a hand over here.
here to learn about freelancing. And what you failed to ask is whether anyone is looking for summer interns. Because that's what I'm looking to be.
So that's kind of hiring a freelancer, because you had your hand half up and half down. Anyone else like to volunteer why they're here? Like what specifically made them want to come tonight? You, sir.
The logistics of what goes into freelancing, the insurance, how you bill your clients, and everything that goes into it.
And you were on the Fitbit tour last year, weren't you? And you got a free Fitbit on that tour, I remember.
Right here.
Nice.
So you see, you should come to the tours. Another question over here.
I'm interested in learning about having a realistic expectation of how much you need to work and how much you actually work, and balancing that. I specifically want to know, like, if you're trying to travel and freelance, like, does that work, or is that just like a dream that people talk about?
Hi, I want to know how to stay out of trouble with my taxes.
Tax day is just a few days away. Anyone else?
So I'm a recent college grad, just kind of getting started, and I've been doing some freelancing for about the last couple of years, but I'd love to get some more detail, in-depth stuff about how I'm supposed to be doing this, what I do right, what's wrong, and just, yeah, getting started.
Any last question? First hand, I see.
So I'm also kind of like passively freelance because I'm unemployed. So I'm wondering how can I make it more sustainable? Like how do I keep getting like more clients and develop my kind of network in the industry on my own?
Great. So there are different opinions. We'll try and cover as much of that as we can tonight. So with our panelists, I'd love you all to, the mics should be set up. I'd love you all, starting with Ariana, working our way across. Birth to today in 2 minutes. Anything you want to say.
Okay. Hello. Oh, good. Okay, Rick told me that he was going to ask about birth to today in 2 minutes, but I am way too old to cover everything in 2 minutes. So,
We've got an hour and a half.
So I'll just say briefly that that I am freelance now. I've been client side. I've worked agency side, and I've kind of looked at the world of being a creative person and kind of selling those services from a lot of different models. And right now, I run my own design consulting business. I work with Fortune 500 companies and tech companies, primarily around brand engagements and user experience design. And I also have a letterpress poster and apparel company.
Would you like to name it?
It's called Paperjampress.
.com?
.com.
Gratuitous plug there.
And they're great posters. My name is Peter. I'm a designer based in San Francisco. I actually grew up in the area, so I'm pretty young, so my 2-minute story will just be like a minute. And I grew up in a family of artists and creatives, and somehow it was still like a surprise when I found graphic design, and I was like, oh, this is the thing for me. I've done mostly digital types of design, web, UI, but I've been getting into more traditional forms of graphic design in recent years. So sometimes for big clients like Apple or Square, sometimes smaller startups like Flinto, and then sometimes traditional graphic design and signage and print projects like local businesses. I did the retail experience for Juice Shop, and they've got some shops in the city. So that's what I do.
Cool.
And so I've been freelancing now full-time for about 4 years.
And your website?
And my website is pnoel.com.
Hey guys, my name is Tina. So I am not from the Bay Area. I'm from North Carolina. I moved here in 2010 for an internship with IDEO and fell in love with the Bay Area and have stayed since then. I come from an in-house designer lineage, so I worked in-house at Chronicle Books, and then while I was there, was interested in getting involved in the tech industry, and an old colleague of mine at Chronicle recruited me at iBooks, and I think she's here. She's a freelancer now. Woo woo. And since then, I've been running my own design studio called From the Desk of. I did a couple years working in-house with contracts before I decided to move into my own office and manage my clients and my projects from my own office. So I also teach at CCA, and I teach a professional practice class there. And I think maybe, are any of my students here? No, okay, some of them are supposed to come.
They're freelancing.
Yeah, so I lecture all day long about how to find clients and how to write a contract and how to market yourself and all that good stuff. So I think about that stuff all the time. So happy to answer your questions today.
Hello, my name is Lisa Gibello. I'm the Vice President of Recruiting at the Creative Group. I have been there for 10 years. I specifically focus only on freelance placements, all in the creative space. We do have a full-time placement team and I partner with them, but I specifically am focused on the freelance and contract to hire side. I came in as a candidate. I was also a freelance producer prior to coming to the Creative Group, owned my own production business here in San Francisco. I am very actively involved in the industries and schools here in San Francisco, so I speak at FITM. I know Chelsea's here tonight, and I am actively involved with UC Berkeley School of Design, and I teach a resume writing class at San Francisco State, so I'm happy to help anybody kind of get from a look and feel putting together your package. But I would say I love what I do. I don't know, it's because I get to work with talent, but I think there's so many opportunities in freelancing that I've really seen. I might tell you a great example. 10 years we've been working together, but the freelance route has really seen some careers change in ways to build your personal network and build your portfolio until you find that place, if you want to find that place to call home. So, and I think what I'll be able to share with you tonight is just a little insight. I've been 20 years in the industry, 10 years prior to Creative Group, just about kind of what's out there and how partnering with an agency, if you're not so, if you're still kind of the college grads especially, how we can help partner with you until you have enough clients on your own to really kind of be independent.
Cool, and now what we should do is have you all talk to each other. So when Amy does these talks, she asks you to turn to somebody who you don't know and tell them why you're here tonight, and then you switch after about 30 seconds. Go ahead. Somebody you don't know, okay, I'm in the room. Okay, I can do this.
One of my students from UC Berkeley Extension is here. I taught at UC Berkeley Extension semesters, and when I see her, I'm so excited.
There's a girl I know, there's actually a blonde girl about 2 rows back in that one.
Yeah.
She works in a pub near me, but she's actually German. So she's got a visa to work, she's a designer. But she wants to get a visa and then stay. Just to talk to you.
That's so hard.
There's a scattering of people I know from different parts of my life.
Yeah. How long have you been on the board?
Since I helped in 2011 and then June 2012.
Were you always in programming, or did you have other?
It's always programming on the board. To the point where in the meetings you've seen Phil say, and you should talk to Rick about that. I've had so many events that just sell out and just
That's great.
I've now become the model of how to do it. We helped a person before me spend 6 months training me in. So, which really helped.
Yeah, I can imagine.
She'd been doing it for 9 years.
Yeah.
So that helps.
Yeah, that's great. That's really great. everybody at the board meeting and shouted at you for being the only person who did it.
Well, usually I do the stuff straight away, so I don't have to
I know,
remember.
I'm like that too, except for I didn't give you images, and I'm sorry.
It's okay. That's okay. I asked well enough in advance, so there's time for around 2 and around 3. It's already 15 minutes in.
I know.
Okay, we could all probably talk for about another hour, but it might be a good point to actually get the panelists to talk. So, the first question, it's a big question for those of you thinking of moving to being freelancers, is making that jump in mindset, basically jumping and hoping the parachute opens for you. Whether it's being laid off, or trying to escape a terrible boss, or a terrible job, or a terrible commute, or something. There's something that propels you forward into deciding to be freelance. It's not all working from the beach in Mexico. It would be nice if it would be, but basically I'm going to ask the panelists, what made you make the switch initially the first time? Your first time coming out. And how was it for you? And what's the change in your mindset in becoming, no longer being a permanent employee or student and being a freelancer? So we'll do it across. So Ariana first.
Hello. Okay, so I've been freelance twice in my career. Once for 6 years, and more recently now for about the last 2 years. And the first time I did it, I was filled with dread and fear. And to Rick's point, there was just, I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't be in-house anymore. I felt compromised, ethically, creatively, I knew too much about business, but not enough. And I was miserable. And I had a couple of friends that were already freelancing, and they were close friends, so I kind of knew, okay, if they can do it, I can do it, so I had a little bit of modeling. The second time I did it, I was filled with dread and fear, as if the first time never happened. I agonized, and I thought about it for so long before I did it, both times. Maybe even longer the second time, even though I had become an expert in it. So I think it's about kind of listening to that voice, giving that voice space, and having the confidence to know that you are talented, you have skills, and the more that you project that desire outward and start telling people, the more people will step forward to try to help you. And I know that's kind of touchy-feely and a little bit not practical advice, but I think that it's about kind of really taking hold of your confidence, really knowing that you can do it.
Yeah, I kind of fell into freelancing because I was working for a startup that failed. And I was just starting to do some design work for them under one of their designers. And I was just starting to realize, product design, designing the actual product as opposed to marketing materials, that's what I really want to be doing. And so a few weeks after it shut down, another company actually in the same building reached out to me about doing some presentation similar to one from the startup. And I think that it's that first project that made me start freelancing. I didn't just wake up one day and without projects and say, now I'm freelancing. Now I start searching. I think you need to I think you really kind of need that first project, and especially if you are currently unemployed, it's just that first project that's going to get the engine rolling. I think freelancing is really an engine. You won't have a lot of clients at first. You need word of mouth referrals. You need to just get your work out there. You need to get a lot of really crappy work out, and just get it out of your system. But then also something Ariana said made me think about sacrifices, because I think running your own business, and especially with freelancing, is there are a lot of sacrifices. So you just need to ask yourself what you really are prioritizing at that moment. So it might just be making money, it might be learning a lot, it might be having a ton of creative freedom, It might be getting your name out there. Like, you just like think about it, because the rest you can just, everyone's gonna be like, oh, well, I'm not gonna make a whole lot of money on this. So it's gonna be about sacrifices. Jump right in. It's gonna take some time for the engine to get rolling.
Do you want to list just a few of those sacrifices you mentioned?
Totally. I mean, at first I was working like 6 or 7 days a week, and sometimes I would take on like spec work or a little bit of free work, which I never do anymore, especially like out of principle. But right now, and learning was one of the biggest things. So I was making the money that I could, but I was really just trying to get as many skills as I could develop and produce a lot of work. And then as I kind of went on, learning is still an important priority for me, but being really respected as a professional and having a lot of creative freedom, I value those a lot more.
Great. Tina?
So like I said, I started my career at IDEO, and that's a really special place, but it also like totally spoils you for the rest of your life if you leave that place. Because the way designers work there is they hire people that kind of specialize in something, and whenever projects come in, they're like, okay, who is the girl that makes logos? And then they like find you and work with you. And no one there is assigned a desk. Like even the CEO doesn't have a desk there. Everyone's just kind of like floating and very independent. And so I think I got spoiled really early on that like, this is how I love to work. Like people come to me because I do this thing, and that's the way I like to work. And so then when I started working in-house on a team, I don't know, it never felt right. Like I hated feeling like I had a hovering boss or a hovering design manager, and I also hated that I felt like I had to be there from 9 to 5. That just makes me have so much anxiety. I don't know why. Like I think I'm just a free bird, and my dad owns an independent business back in North Carolina, and so I think I kind of was raised in a very independent thinking household that you don't have to work for the man. You can actually have an idea and build a company around that idea, and if you believe in it enough that it'll succeed. So I think I had some really good role models early on in my life and even in my career that if you specialize and you're passionate about what you do and you have a good idea, that'll succeed. So I think I've just always had in-house anxiety. I don't know. Like, I think that was the biggest driver. I mean, I think a lot of you guys are here because maybe you have that too. And then working at Apple was kind of like the push because it was like zero culture and like cubicles and people sit next to each other and like chat with each other instead of like talking to each other. Oh my god, yeah. So I think that was the moment where I was like, fuck this, like I'm do my own thing. So yeah, I think that's my answer.
When I was out freelancing, mine was by default. I was laid off. And to be honest, I think at that time, because when you go through a layoff, you go through sometimes there's bad morale, you're like, I'm just glad to be out of this situation. It was also my ticket to be like, well, I can be unemployed or I can be a freelancer. Depends on what day of the week it was. But and I decided that I really wanted to do the freelance route, and I got myself incorporated and got my own business established. And I think what it was is to Peter's point, the first project, like I had clients just because I didn't have a job. They still had projects going, and so I jumped immediately in. I think a strong network is a really good support system, and I do think, and it doesn't mean that the more years of experience you have, the better your network, because it really is who's in your network and how you utilize that. So you can be very actively engaged in the industry, networking, going to meetups.
Come to AIG events.
Go to AIG events, pick the panel. But again, being constantly with your own peers. I'll give you an example. I had a designer who went to a meetup. My client met her, interviewed her, called me the next day and said, hey, I met Christina at a meetup. She's not right for my role, but I bet you have some great opportunities for her. 2 days later, she was working. because people know people. So when I first got laid off, I was like, okay, I called all my clients, I called all my managers. I was like, I'm going on my own, I wanna finish this project. So you really can't wait for the opportunity to come to you. It's not like, hey, I'm gonna apply, hey, I'm gonna send off my reel, or I'm gonna send off my portfolio. You need to be out there being your voice, being your advocate. Anybody can look good on paper, but people wanna hire people who have a voice and wanna be part of something, and you've got, you got cojones, you've got a portfolio, you've got the ability to bring to the table an independent talent that you don't need a company and a team to be that successful. So I really encourage you to not just think like asking people to invite on LinkedIn and, hey, I'm part of 5 organizations online, but again, to like personally talking with people, having conversations and being in your industry. And don't be afraid to ask. Go to your old boss, go to your employers, go to your professors, let them know what you're doing. People know people.
Exactly. Roger Mueller is here at the back. I worked with him 10 years ago. We haven't seen each other in years. But, it's just chance meetings at events like this that really make your network. That leads me to the next question. So a lot of people probably go freelance when either they have a terrible situation or they're laid off, and we're all designers and we go, right, I'm going to be a freelancer. I need a logo. I need to somehow be me. I have to do the thing that gets me the work. So, and by the way, I'll preface that by saying I have a ridiculous identity. If you look me up online, it's all me in various costumes from a costume shop that's near where I live. It's funny, people remember it, and I'm struggling now to think of how to do anything better for this year. But with that in mind, so how do you guys market yourself, or what do you advise on how to market yourself? How do you get the word out? Leading directly in from Lisa's last point. Ariana?
I don't really know how to use the microphone. So I did want to follow up just really fast on what Lisa was saying. It's really important to invest in the design community and your cohort, and that group of people will step forward to help you. But don't forget that the people who are not in the design community also want to help you. My mom's a real estate agent, real estate agents, just like designers, want logos. Every once in a while my mom's like, hey, do you think you could, so whoever those people are that are your peers, that are your friends, that are your parents, that are your neighbors, people need design services, and that could be another input source. So how do I market myself? I really don't. And I think that I probably should, and I could do a better job. But the truth is that I don't. And that's primarily because I have been in the industry a long time, and I have a lot of friends and colleagues, and I'm active in the industry, and I'm active with that group of people professionally and personally. And so most of the time, our lives are intertwined in those ways, and someone will say, what are you doing? And, the conversation will veer towards work. And there are, probably a handful of people who have hired me many, many times over the years. And so I have those relationships. So I'm very fortunate for that. And I think if I wanted to position my business differently, other than the way that I'm doing it now, I would have to invest in more proactive business development, different positioning, and kind of a more sophisticated packaging of my services.
And remember, if you want to get a loan from a bank, you have to really articulate all that stuff well, just to get set up. Luckily, as designers, we have a very low cost for entry, thank God. But, at some point, we do have to articulate what we can do.
Yes.
Yeah, I also haven't really done a whole lot of marketing, and I think one of the reasons for that actually is that most of my clients over the years have been consistent clients. So they need a designer 1 or 2 days a week, and that kind of covers my bases. That, if need be, that covers my rent, and then it gives me the flexibility to take on projects to kind of fill in the other time, or the rest of the time. And when you have consistent work coming in, just one client, all of a sudden you just don't have to worry about marketing. I have to say that one thing that I've been doing in the last few years that's kind of interesting and is starting to play out more and more is I write a lot of articles. I write articles about my preferred design tool, Sketch. I write articles sometimes about freelancing. I've got an article you guys might like about breaking up with clients. I recently taught a class on icon design. You just kind of get yourself out there. If you know one little thing, just share it. And the people who, like, a lot of people might not see it, but if you just keep at it, it's amazing. Like a lot of these articles kind of just like take on a life of their own. The industries around them will just start sharing them and propagating them. And recently, I just like wrote my 8th article or something, and within a week I had like some really amazing cold emails in my inbox from big companies.
And where did the articles appear?
I write my articles on medium.com because I don't want to have to maintain a blog on a consistent basis, and my articles are generally on whatever topic I just want to write about. So I think it's a great place to like also get your designer tendencies out of the way. You can just write. You can't really format them a whole lot. You can make sweet graphics, but really you're just going to focus on the writing experience, and you can just put one article out there. So I'd say that's the main marketing that I've actually kind of unintentionally been doing in the last.
And you didn't mention the videos.
Oh yeah, so I am very, very slowly working my way towards my next career step, and very slowly getting my portfolio in better shape. So I finally got like a passable website, and I really didn't for a long time, and it's probably not going to break your game. But yeah, I spent a long time actually working with a film company who used to be one of my clients on a few videos, case studies about fun projects that I'd done. Not like the easiest way to present your portfolio or the most cost-effective way, but it's just how I wanted to share those stories.
And I have to say, they are pretty impressive, going through the entire branding process in a video that's about 2.5 to 3 minutes long. There's 3 of them. I highly recommend you look at them, because you'll never look at your portfolio again the same way.
Let me tell you though, like honestly, I spent like 4 months straight on those. I had a little client work on the side too, but they were a massive undertaking and a massive cost. I know they'll play out over time, but you could do a lot of other things for a lot less energy.
Great. Tina?
So I feel like I'm kind of preaching to the choir, but AIGA events are amazing. So I kind of, day one of moving to San Francisco, was like, I want to meet everyone now. So I joined the board of AIGA. And do you guys have any positions open?
We probably do.
Okay. But that was an awesome way to like immediately meet everyone in the industry really quickly. And I was doing social media for AIGA too, so it was just an excuse to be like, hey, like meet people and spark up a conversation. So I think, honestly, when I started freelancing, a lot of my contact base that was contacting me for work was people that I met through AIGA, which is pretty powerful. But also, yeah, it's totally like who you know before what you know. I always feel weird saying that, but it's kind of true. But also, if you feel like you have a talent that you're trying to market that may or may not be actually in your portfolio, side projects are a really good way to just practice those skills. I mean, I've started several side projects that have immediately led to client work, and that should never really be the reason why you're doing those things. It should be more so like, hey, I can do these things, and I need to practice it, and I need to show people that I can do it. And that can, if you post it online and it gets shared around enough, like it can actually lead to client work. So I would say always be meeting people. Don't be an asshole, just be nice. Like, no one wants to work with an asshole, you know? Yeah, and like push out work into the world that you want to be doing. And I think a lot of people, and I tell my students this, a lot of people make their portfolios and put all the design work they've ever done ever on their portfolios. Or they're like, I live in San Francisco and all the jobs are apps, so here's a shitty app I made in school just to show I know how to do it so I can get a job. But the thing is, if you do that, you're gonna get hired for that, and if you hated doing it, then you're gonna be doing work you hate. So I would say meet people, don't be an asshole, post work out in the world that you want to be doing, and it'll all come back to you in a positive way.
Cool.
While I'm not a designer, I think I definitely have to have a brand. I mean, one bad recruiter can give all of us a bad name. And I've had the privilege of 10 years to really work with some people, and if you go to my LinkedIn, I mean, my mantra is on a good day, I wake up and change a life, and I think attitude is a lot of it. I personally pride myself that I go from one event to the next, and I'm like, oh, I saw you speak here, or you were there, or I was in your class, or just clients become candidates, candidates become clients, so I personally really proud, branded myself based on what I do, and I do it because I truly love what I do, and I'm very genuine. I'm also very transparent. I don't tell you what you want to hear. I don't tell you what my client wants to hear. I've learned a lot about delivery. I'm still working on that. But I just believe that sometimes, we got to be direct and go after what you want. Don't be afraid. When I hire people, I always say, these are things I cannot train you to do. And it's tenacity, adaptability, the ability to have a difficult conversation, to read between the lines, and to know it's business and not personal. If you can do those, you can do anything. But those are 5 things that are going to become imperative to running your own business or building your own brand. And even for the people who don't like me out there, it's probably because I told them something they didn't want to hear, but that's who I'm very genuine. And I believe in the art of a real conversation. Anybody can go to my LinkedIn, anybody can send me a resume, but I want to meet you. I want to talk to you in person. I want to know who you are. So I really thrive on being in front of people and that human connection, because I think, again, it can be months later, a year later, but that conversation and that one connection could bode into the amazing opportunity. So while it hasn't been, I don't have a portfolio of work, I would be very proud to show my whole roster of lives I've changed and people I've placed. And again, I only do freelance, but those freelance opportunities have turned into multiple design careers. So be real, be yourself, and be proud of what you do. Own your conversation, own your talent. Don't be like, well, I can, and this, and me. It's like, if you're gonna be freelance and you're gonna be out there, be proud of your work. Whether you have 6 months or 16 years, be humble to what you don't know, but be proud of what you do own and what you do have. And be your biggest brand ambassador is what I would say. Because if you're hesitant or you're not confident, how's it gonna make a client feel?
Just one thing to add.
Go ahead,
Just one thing to add on that. It's amazing. Maybe it's just right now, but there's a lot of work out there. And like Ariana said, everybody needs a designer, even if it's just one real estate agent or something. And so the work is out there. And most of the time I've been surprised to find that people hire based on what you can do, not necessarily looking at your whole resume or how much experience you have. They just need somebody to do that project. Yeah. And when it does come to presenting your work, another thing I've learned recently, this is a practical piece of advice, just get a great photographer. Seriously, we are in a visual profession, and people can look at a photograph and just instantly come to the conclusion, this is someone who I want to work with. If you're only doing things in the digital space, get great photographs of people using devices that you can then add your comps to. Don't just use the ones online, but real photographs and even sometimes great studio shots can make even your side projects seem like they were done for some huge client or put out by some big agency.
And one more thing too, as far as on the brand, you made me think about it when you were talking about how you put out your work. Because one, that is a first reflection. So I would really have someone else look at your portfolio, go through it, and on your resume. One of the things I work a lot with on more newer folks to the industry who don't have as much in a portfolio or 16 years of experience to share with a client, as part of your personal brand, is talking a little bit more about who you are. So I do an exercise with all my students in my resume writing class, and I really, by the time they come in, they all come in with a resume that's like, this is my employment history, bulleted, it's got dates, it's like, awesome. But it's only what they did. I don't know one thing about them. Are they the funny person at work? Are they the team lead? Do they inspire? I had a student, she was a drummer in 2 bands. I'm like, okay, that's one, really cool. 2, I think it speaks to something, here she is a brand designer, she's taking classes at night, but it's a passion, it's a learned skill. So I always kind of also, though, be cautious, because you don't want to put, we're not going on a date, and I don't want to hang out with you on Saturday. So I don't care if you like hiking, biking, and yoga. But I do care if you are engaged in an industry organization. I do care if you are a competitive surfer or you are a drummer, because there's a trained talent, there's a loyalty there, but you have to remember, you're just giving them a one way. So if you don't, until you have that opportunity to be your own brand ambassador or tell them what you can do or walk them through a portfolio, I encourage you to put who you are as a person in a way of also representing your work. So often on resumes, and you could have an about me section in your portfolio, but and please don't put a picture on a resume, I'll just throw that one out there, that's what LinkedIn portfolio is for. But again, I want to know a little bit about your soft skills, if you've had other accomplishments, if you're part of organizations, but those kind of things also are part of your brand, they're part of who you are. If you won any awards. So don't be shy to kind of put that out there, because unless, again, you get a chance to go in and interview or pitch your work, they're only going to be a visual representation of it.
So you've made the move to wanting to be a freelancer, and you've got all your branded collateral or ways of marketing yourself, but now it's time to talk about the other part of the equation, clients. So how do you find and then keep clients? Now, I'm at the role I'm in at the moment, I'm a kind of permanent freelancer. And how I found that role was in my spare time, I coach soccer. And I coached this team that did extremely well last year. And one of the dads in the team is now the CMO of this gaming company. He used to be the COO of Zynga. And he knew I was freelancing last summer. And he said, okay, I've seen you under a lot of pressure. Do you want to come in and talk to my design team? And I've been there ever since. So you just never know where you're going to get these freelance gigs from. That's actually the second freelance gig I've got from managing that team, by the way. So you never know. So with that in mind, starting with Ariana, how do you find and keep clients? And to Peter's points that he made earlier back there was the whole client relationship. How do you split up with clients and so on? Like that basically the elephant in the room. Actually, is anybody in the room here a client, so to speak, hired freelancers? No? Okay, you can speak freely now.
So I think we kind of touched on this a little bit. I find clients by being active in the community, active in kind of the cultural events that I like, maintaining friendships, and it's sort of like an implicit business development rather than an explicit business development. I like to catch up with friends and have coffee, and if they've changed jobs or if I hear about something that's going on in their life, I like being social, and so I think that begets business. In terms of keeping clients, I always deliver. I always deliver what the client needs in the time frame that they need it by. I think that back to this idea of what goes in your portfolio or what a portfolio is a curation, and it's also a beacon. But the importance of that is to really be able to put out in the world what the kind of work that you want to get, and that didn't make any sense. Back to keeping clients. Always deliver, being social, and maintaining those relationships. I think I'll leave it at that. I'll have a do-over later.
So I'm really passionate about client management when it comes to freelancing, probably more than any other topic. And it's because I've figured out a little bit about who I want to work with and who I really don't want to work with. Like, I didn't write that article about breaking up with clients just, like, I never wanted to break up with a client. But what I've learned is that, first off, client management is something that you do every day while you're a freelancer. This isn't just like getting jobs, like this is one of the most important topics. And as soon as you meet a client, even really before, but as soon as you make that connection, you are establishing the working relationship that you want to have. And there's a lot that goes into that. Like, if you undervalue yourself immediately, that is going to play out over the entire relationship, even after the relationship. Like, they might refer you to other people who you don't want to be referred to because they undervalue you. And I would also say, I think one of the things that I align with most that Ariana said is just do great work, always deliver what they need. So even if I have to kind of like grapple with a client quite a bit, they can't argue with the fact that I'm giving them something that is like a great product. And okay, just one other practical resource I want to put out there. There's a great book on this that I've learned a lot from, and it's really helped me in moments when I'm insecure or I realize I've really effed up. And it's Mike Montero's book, Design is a Job. He gave a, can I swear?
You can indeed.
He gave
Feel free.
Yeah, he gave a great talk on Creative Mornings called Fuck You, Pay Me, that you should also watch. I'm sure a lot of you have. And so he's got this great book. There's also an audiobook. I just re-listened to it. You can listen to it in an afternoon. Design is a Job. Oh, you don't need it.
So I agree with Peter that actually I feel like sometimes most of my job is client management. And something I teach my students is that your business isn't personal, and as designers and creatives, it feels very personal. But it's business, and you kind of have to put your, I would say, like, business hat on. And so it's hard because sometimes in the morning you wake up with like a shitty client email and you just haven't had your coffee yet, and you're just like, but you can't do that. And that's the thing about being a freelancer is you are representing your business and you are defending your work, not your boss anymore, not your design manager. It's all you, and that's something that you have to really, really accept before you commit to this. And it's not for everyone. Like, I meet people who think they can freelance, and then they're like, oh my god, I had to explain my work and maintain this relationship, and I just don't do that. Like, they need someone else to do that for them. And if you can hire someone to do that for you, that's kind of awesome.
Or that's where the creative group could come in.
That's awesome.
I'm the queen of difficult conversations.
Cool. But I love that part. And at first I didn't, and you learn by doing. And reading and listening to lectures. I agree, Mike is amazing. He can be kind of a dick sometimes. But,
Absolutely. You have to be a dick sometimes.
Sometimes you have to be a dick, but hopefully not all the time. So yeah, I think I maintain my clients by just being a good person, and I've also really built in like the strategy side of things into my business, and I think that's been really helpful because I'm not just delivering an aesthetic design decision. I'm able to walk my clients through my design decisions, through my strategy process, and so that's been really, really helpful in maintaining relationships. And what I mean by that is, so I specialize in brand identity, and like half of my project becomes like a research and user testing phase, and by building that into my fee and by building that into my process, I've been able to like really bond with my clients because it becomes more of a collaboration and less of like, you're hiring me for this thing and I'm making a logo and here you are. Like, no one's gonna like that if you just deliver without explaining and walking them through the process and actually including them in that process. And it's that can be hard sometimes because as a freelancer you kind of get off on being on your own and like being in your house like, yes, I'm running a business. But sometimes you have to like talk to your clients and go to their offices or invite them into yours and really invite them in on your process and make it feel like a group effort. And that's been really powerful in helping maintain clients because they enjoy that process so much and they feel like when the design is done that they really influenced it and it was more of a collaboration effort. But I also would like to expand on marketing yourself to not just designers, and I think that's something that doesn't get talked about a lot because even events like this, like we're all designers and we're all networking with each other, but often like maybe like they're not actually hiring. Like, did anyone even raise their hand? Like, who's hiring freelancers? Like, you know, like
We know this gentleman's looking for an intern.
Right. So there is some power in going outside of your design comfort zone and talking to other people that are specializing in other things other than design. And I actually love that a lot more because when I'm working for a designer, like the designer is my client, I get a little lazy because I don't feel like I'm like, oh, they know how I got to this solution. You know, like you're not like walking them through it. You get a little lazy. So I actually love working with non-designers, and that's something new that I've been really loving and doing.
And a lot of the time, the non-designers are writing the checks as well.
Yeah, totally. So my new thing is like, what industries need design help and working in those industries. So.
Lisa?
I think, and again, I live for my clients because without them, I don't have freelance jobs for all of you. So I'm constantly trying to retain and develop new client relationships. And I think for me, the biggest number one has been customer service. And again, that goes back to the transparency. So setting the expectations at the beginning, even when I ran my own business, it's like, setting it up at the beginning that you are the owner of your business and this is how you work in your process. You've got to be, willing to compromise and have dialogues and hear them out and understand their needs. But it's also up to you to educate them and inform them on here's what I can deliver, here is how I work, here is what you can expect of me, and then, delivering on that, delivering what you set, but setting the expectations, and also it means setting the expectations of what you're not going to be able to deliver. So when I was freelancing, I'd make an engineer come in the room, and I was like, but you don't get it, because if they can't build it, I don't want to sell it to you. Because they were thinking all bells and whistles, and this is what it's going to look like. So you really need to help them understand where their expertise is not and setting the expectation around that. And sometimes that's the ability to have a difficult conversation and saying, I understand it, it's going to cost you this much, or I will be able to give you this, or this is what I can do. Here's how it works. Because it's not, to your point, it's not just the end deliverable. They want to know the process, they want to know how you got there. And a lot of portfolios are the end results. But it's like, well, what part did you own? What part did you do? What were you doing? What was the process? How long did it take? What were the challenges and things like that? So being a really good storyteller, but also setting the expectations and then delivering those to those. And I've got clients that I've worked with for 10 years, and I'm so lucky. They've got so many avenues to choose from. I've got candidates that become clients, and they're like, man, you helped me, now I want to work with you. And I've got people who I didn't place. I've got a girl, Natasha, she took a full-time job at Theranos. She was talking to her coworker, and his wife is a freelancer looking for a job, and he's like, yeah, my husband works with Natasha at Theranos, and he said I have to call you because I'm a freelancer looking for a job. I didn't even get her a job, but I coached her through her whole negotiation process for the job she did take. But it was, again, I had nothing to lose. It was purely a relationship. She didn't know how to negotiate this whole salary, this, and going on, do I go full-time? I ended up just building a relationship with her, and through her, she has given me some amazing design referrals of people that I am currently working with. And I will tell you on a weekly basis, I mean, you can ask my team, I probably get anywhere from 5 to 20 referrals a week, because that is who, and I'm very proud with Jose and some other people here, just that come through all referrals that I've had the privilege to work with, that it's a lot. Again, I feel like I did them, and even if I didn't find them a job or I didn't give them what they wanted, it was the experience of working with me that helped me build my network to have more clients and more candidates. So I really think customer service, you gotta remember that it's not just your way or the highway, and who are you talking to, and mirror their body language and mirror their communication style, and listen to them, because sometimes it's not what you do, it's what you don't do.
Great.
Could I add
Peter?
one more
Yeah.
thing about client management?
And then I think Ariana wants to do over.
Oh yeah, I have a couple things to say. It might not make any sense, but I'm gonna do it.
So nobody knows how to be a good client. You have to guide your clients to give you the feedback that you want to hear, or the feedback the way you need to hear it. You need to guide them through all these different processes, and yeah, it's about expectations. It's so much of it is about customer service, especially if you're not working with designers. I mean, non-designers will almost think about the experience of working with you more than the work that you deliver to them. But also, just if you're getting started with freelancing, or if you're getting started in your design career, just know that you're gonna mess up, and it's okay. Like, it took me a few clients to feel like I had a good cadence, like I found my stride with working with clients. Like, I wasn't undervaluing myself quite as much anymore. Like, I knew where to stand my ground, and I knew how much to pay, or I knew how much to charge a little bit. Your first clients will help you get to that point, and there will come a time when you have to move on. It doesn't need to be, it can be as amicable as a friendship, but know that, like, if they hired you at $30 an hour, and now you're realizing that you shouldn't be making less than $60 an hour for your design skills that you're offering, that first client they're not gonna buy it. Like, you're going to have to take the work that you did for them, find another person who can see you with fresh eyes, and that's okay, and you'll move on, you'll love it. But leave when the time is right.
Do you want to do over, or shall we go into how much to charge clients, which perfectly dovetails with Peter? Do you want to do that?
Well, I just wanted to say that most of your clients will not be designers. I think maybe your situation is unique, that you have been working with design clients on identity work. Most of your clients will not be designers. They know nothing about this mystical process. They know nothing about, like, the value of the value exchange in this process. Especially if they're a small business, even a small amount of money to you can seem very big to them. And so I think everybody's kind of touched on this, but it is not only about educating your clients in the process, it's about making that process accessible to them, allowing them to understand the value for the work and the value in the relationship. And it's about making the work itself accessible too, like giving language to that work, because most often your client is not a client, it is clients. They have bosses, they have budgets, they have teams, they have tons of little vectors that are gonna come in and try to upset this beautifully packaged, well thought out solution or idea that you've forged into the world with all of your skills and talents, and is an expression of their vision as well, right? They came to you with this idea, it's passed through you, you've created it in the world, and then they have to kind of go back and shepherd it in the best case scenario and sell it in the worst case scenario. And so giving that work meaning for them that's accessible so that they can talk about it on your behalf and on behalf of the integrity of the work, is also a great way to deliver more than just the deliverable, right? The identity, the packaging system, the website, the app, it's delivering kind of in a more comprehensive way. About what to charge, that's the question, right? No, the question is how much do I get paid?
Well,
Yeah.
it's that awkward point in the relationship, with any interpersonal relationship, it gets to a point where you have to have a talk, or it's like no longer seeing other people. With freelancers, there's a similar talk where it's like, okay, at some point you got to actually specify specifically how much you want to be charged. And if you freelance for any length of time, there's been moments where you've gone, damn, I should have done a little more. There's been times where there's just silence, and you think, I blew it. So, what are your experiences? You don't have to say how much you charge if you don't want to, or to give guidelines, or you can say just your thoughts.
So there's lots of different ways to charge for your work, and there's lots of different ways to be employed in a freelance capacity. So you can charge by the project, you can charge by the hour, you can be a temporary employee of a company that's getting an hourly rate that's negotiated for you by a company like the Creative Group, or could be negotiated by yourself if you have those relationships with a business. So there's lots of different models and kind of ways to slice how you will be paid for your participation. I've probably tried every one of those models at a certain point in time. I don't charge by the project, I typically charge by the hour. And sometimes I work through my own LLC, sometimes I am a temporary employee of some of my clients, and it really just depends on the scope of services. In terms of what to charge, there's a lot of different models online to figure this out. But I think it starts with understanding how much money you want to make. You decide your salary, right? You decide this number. There's a lot of salary surveys out there that you can base this off of. You can talk to your friends and colleagues if they will disclose any of that information to you. You can be the best boss you ever had and pick a really big number because you deserve it. But you have to decide what this number is. And then you have to figure out how many hours you want to work. How many hours in a year, how many hours in a week. When you're a freelancer, all of your hours are not going to be billable. There's time that you have to dedicate to business development. There's time that you have to dedicate to client management that really isn't billable. There's time that you have to dedicate to doing your own billing or accounting. All the administrative tasks, marketing, that is not what you're getting paid for. That's not the service you're getting paid for. So it's not like, holy shit, I can just work, work my butt off, and it's just like an incremental multiplier, right? So someone asked a question about work-life balance, and I think you have to figure out what that number is. You then have to also figure out your overhead, right? How much is your rent? How much is your cell phone? How much are the services that you use to run your business? You're a business, right? And then, this is math for designers, but basically you figure out this amount of money that you want to make. You figure out your overhead. You figure out how many hours you can work in a week or a month. And then you also should give yourself a profit margin, right? So you're not just going to make this amount of money, but you're a business. A healthy business shows a profit, right? It shows a profit of 10%, 15%, 20%, whatever that is. And you're going to crunch all that math, and you can look this up online and figure it out. And that is a way to derive with confidence your hourly rate. So it's not just a subjective thing. It's not just this number. It's not something that you want to make, but you don't know why. You know why because you're a business. You're a business that has overhead. You're a business that only that has X amount of hours in the day, and it'll give you more confidence in what those numbers are.
Go ahead.
Yeah, there's a lot of taboo around this topic. And I don't think I've actually broken through that taboo to learn from enough people what they're making, but I've been surprised at specific moments when like I'll see the work that some agency is producing. I'm like, holy shit, like that sucks. Like I could have done that in a week, and they're probably just handing it to an intern. So so you'll get a sense of it over time. But I couldn't reiterate more like how you structure your work, how you structure your work with a client. That determines a huge part of how much you should charge, in my opinion. So a lot of my clients, like I said, have been consistent clients. They need me a certain number of hours or days in a week. And for those clients, the more that they need me, the less I charge them. If they need 5 days of my week, it doesn't make sense for me to charge them the same amount that a client who only needs me occasionally on an hourly basis, I mean, maybe for an hour or two, like that, the amount of business work involved in working a couple hours for somebody is like, you might as well be working for weeks on a project for them. So that's a higher rate. And I also prefer working based on my time. I've found that by billing in entire days, oh, and by the way, I love billing for day.
You do
like,
day rate?
I do a day rate, yeah. Because I can't do creative work in little 2-hour periods. Like, I need an entire day to be able to, like, to have the space to just produce. And know that I'm not really gonna spread myself too thin across a week. So that's one of the biggest things I've learned for just like my own health and balance. Because then I'm like, well, 5 days, filled up my week. It's like pretty simple. That's designer math. And and then also you'll get projects where it really makes sense to bill on a project basis.
Sure.
And for those, I am just way too big of an optimist. Like, I never consider risk. I never consider what I'm gonna have to learn in the process, what I'm gonna have to debug, which can sometimes take just as long as building something if you're doing digital stuff. So I've started to just like multiply all of my estimates by like 1.3 or 1.5.
Yeah.
And then when you have a larger client, so I'm just starting to get more familiar with working directly with larger companies. And then you have to kind of consider the hourly rate that you're worth, probably double it, and then figure out like how long the project is going to take, and if you're going to have to work with other people, bring other people in. For larger projects, it's actually a lot more complicated. It's really nice if you can start out by finding a company that just needs a couple days of your time. They don't need a full-time designer. Like, your entire freelance career will be off to like a really good humming start.
That's a great point. Yeah, I really
Yeah.
good point.
And you know, I know I am always undercharge, and like that's fine. But you have to slowly work your way up, because if you go in like guns blazing and you don't feel comfortable backing up how much you make, then you know what's the point?
Could I just say one more thing? Talking about money is weird, obviously. And so in addition to deriving this hourly rate, having confidence in what you're gonna charge, it's always great to have a best friend who tells you you're not charging enough. For those moments of weakness, for those moments when you're like, I don't wanna talk about this stuff. Some people love talking about money. Some people love negotiating. If you're that person, I'm jealous.
Those people are usually not designers.
Usually, but that's not necessarily true. So yeah, find a best friend. Find someone in your life who's gonna tell you.
Or someone you
give you
just
that
met
extra.
earlier
Yeah.
tonight, and
I'll
that
tell
stranger
you,
you turned around and
I'll
talked
tell you
to.
all right now, you're not charging enough.
And by the way, I love to travel. You can absolutely do it.
Yeah, money. So. So I hate charging hourly. And this is why I love these conversations, because you get to kind of hear from all sides and find what fits for you. But I hate charging hourly because, well, number one, the type of work I do is
Yes.
more like identity, like project. So that's a project rate, right? But I also hate charging hourly because I think about this all the time. Say you have 10 years experience, you went to undergrad and grad for design, and you get hired and you're charging $100 an hour or whatever. And then this person next to you who never went to school, has zero experience, is charging $100 an hour as well. You're efficient because you have 10 years of experience and 2 degrees in design, and you're efficient and you get it done in 2 hours, you get paid $200 an hour. The person next to you dicking around that doesn't know what they're doing is inefficient and takes 2 weeks to do it. They get paid a lot more than you. So that's why I hate it. And that just feels shitty. And it haunts my dreams. So I hate that. So I love charging for project rate. But I built my business around that. Like, I take in projects. And I also love to travel. And I love to, like, take on a project that's going to keep me in my office for like 1 month and I won't sleep, but then the next month I take off and I go to Mexico. You know what I mean? Like, that's I love that, and that's like the freedom that you get to build around yourself. So if you know that's why you're going into this, because you want to be able to do that, then do it. You know, you can like kind of put on the type of work that fits within that framework. And I think that's a very interesting conversation that. That's taken me a couple of years to learn is like, how do you like to work? You know, if you do like working hourly in someone else's office or charging day rates in someone else's office, that can be amazing. Sometimes it takes a couple of years trying a couple things out to find what type of freelancer you want to be. And I think I worked 1.5 years working in other offices. Like I spent some time back at IDEO. And working on a day rate and an hourly rate, and then I would take project rates in someone else's office. And I think I did that for like 1.5 years and realized that that wasn't the world I wanted to be working in, and that I wanted to have my own office and bring in projects in my own office and kind of run my business that way. So I think if you find the way you like to work, and again, it might take a little while and taking on a couple jobs, then you can charge per that framework that you like to work in. And I think people hate, like it's weird talking about money, but like money is your value, and I think you know how much you're worth, and then you should double that. Like, I remember the first time I asked for a like $2,000 day rate. I'm just gonna start spilling money here. And I felt crazy, like I couldn't sleep. Like, I literally couldn't sleep. And I only charged that much because I showed it to a friend and she was like, double that. And I was like, okay. Also, it was Uber, and they're like, the devil, so. And like, the next morning I woke up with like, sounds good, come on in, like, and I was like, what, you know? So like, sometimes you're gonna feel crazy asking for a lot of money, but, and that's another conversation, like, what is the industry that you're working in and like pricing towards? Like, this is San Francisco. You know?
But not everyone's willing to pay that, just to throw that out there. Like,
Oh,
you got
no.
really lucky. Because I find, sorry to jump in on that note, can't help myself when we're in. And, because I'm finding that, you know how we had that devastating economy crash in like 2009, and everyone tightened their belts. I find that they're not loosening those belts, even though there clearly is a ton of money being made in this town. They're not willing to pass it out on freelancers. That's my understanding, unless you're in the creme de la creme level.
I don't think I am. Like, this was actually, that was my first project, freelancing. I don't know.
I think that it could have gone either way. And that's the thing, is like, you don't ask, you don't get. And I am very empathetic to whatever rejection that you may have had in that, in those asks, and it's happened to me too. But there is something to, pushing yourself beyond, maybe what you're comfortable with, financially, to kind of test where those levels are. And that brings up the question that it is relative. It's relative, pricing is relative to your geography, and it's relative to the size of the client as well. And just because they're a big name client doesn't necessarily mean they're willing to pay more. And sometimes smaller clients who really appreciate you and value the work more, might be willing to pay you more. So there is a bit of alchemy to it, both in terms of your perspective on it, and then also what the market will bear.
Yeah, and there's also something to proving why you're worth that value. If you just throw a number out there, like no one's gonna be like, sure, that sounds great. But if you kind of can break it down, like I even build documents that kind of walk through, this is my process and this is the value with this sticker price. And I think there's a lot of power in that, and if you spend enough time doing that, I don't need to be directing it towards you, but everyone. Like if you can kind of build an argument and say like, yeah, I'm worth this much money because blah, 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 blah. Like every estimate I give, I build a document around that, like showing that value and showing case studies and,
Yeah. There's just one more thing I would say is when you're putting out numbers like that, no matter what they are, you have to be willing to expect that the client might not say yes. So and that there's consequences. At a big scale, at a small scale, it doesn't matter who the client is, doesn't matter what the amount of money is, because it's a perception thing and it's very, very subjective. And so, the bigger the number, theoretically, the bigger the risk is in saying that, and you have to be comfortable with the consequences.
And it's a little bit like the relationship metaphor we touched on earlier, whereby you might go on a lot of dates, but that doesn't necessarily, each one of those does not lead to a long-term relationship.
Yes, that's right.
So it's a very similar thing. Anyone who, and we don't even need to show hands, everyone here has been on a lot of dates. You've been in a certain amount of long-term relationships. Some dates worked out, some didn't. There was an awkward conversation at some point for the ones that didn't work out. It's the same process. If you're brave enough to do that, you're brave enough to do this.
Yes.
And money should always be a conversation, like you shouldn't be nervous about approaching those conversations. You should, again, step aside your emotions and say, this is my business, and you should be confident enough walking them through those prices. And I think there was actually a really great, I can't remember if it's the Fuck You Pay Me, Mike Monterio. I think he gives a good metaphor of like, I'm fat and I want to lose weight, and so I walk into a bike shop and I want to buy a bike, but I don't know what I'm doing. And he had a really great bike rep that walked him through, or salesman that walked him through okay, what's the right bike for you and why, and try a few things, and was really patient with him. And ultimately he bought that $2,000 bike and felt awesome going into it, buying it, because someone walked him through why this is the right bike for them and spent time with them. And I think you kind of have to do that with your clients.
And actually we need Lisa, who hasn't spoken at all on this topic.
No, well, and that's, I think, actually, because I work with a lot of people who bill on their own, and I'm gonna be straight up. You can make more money billing directly, but it goes to a lot of the overhead costs. You have to go out and do the business development, you got to invoice, kind of hope they pay you in time because y'all got rent to pay, right, or mortgages or whatever. So I think it goes twofold here, because I do think that when you are established enough and you have that comfort zone, you can wait for a client to pay you for 45 days and be okay. You might have to ask them 3 times, but you're kind of at the mercy. You also have to invoice, you manage all your own business. So when you are just starting out, I do think that there's a couple really good advantages. I look at it as a partnership. I'm not your employer. The work you do, the portfolio, the resume, it's all with the clients that we place you on. But we are your advocate, so I will go and negotiate. I often I'll start a lot of conversations. What's your annual goal? What do you want to be making? So that I know I'm providing them with an hourly rate that will achieve that annual rate. And again, it's around the circumstance of, is it part-time, is it ongoing contract, is it 2 months? But at the end, I want to know that I'm paying them to achieve their goal. I then have a bill rate to a client. But in that, I'm paying for the workers' comp, the liability insurance, I take care of all the overhead, I pay you every single week, I owe you direct deposit. You even accrue sick time working through me as a freelancer, because I will provide you all the benefits. So when you don't, until you get to that, I work a lot with people who I will provide opportunity, we'll put you out in front of 15 clients, you don't know how to do it, but through us we partner, and you might end up taking that into a long-term opportunity. I'll work with people, I've worked with them on and off, they come and they go, I do one project a year, then they've got their own clients, they come back, they know when they work with me, they charge a less hourly rate than they charge on their own, but you know what? They don't have to invoice, they don't have to find the client, they don't have to bill, they don't have to do anything. All they gotta do is show up and design. And if it's even on site, they just gotta show up. So I do think that when you are new, and until you've had the luxury to provide your value and enough work under your belt to say, this is why I charge, or go in and know what you want to make, having someone to help navigate those conversations, negotiate for you, it's in my best interest to get you the best rate or the best salary, because if I don't, A, you're going to bolt, something better is going to come along, and what does that do to my client, right? Because I'm invested on both ends. I want you to stay, but I'm putting all my credibility on a client for you. So if I do that, I don't want to know that I'm paying you. But again, all you got to do is design, you're building your portfolio, and then you can go on to be your own freelancing self and be like, hey, here's my portfolio. I've been freelancing for 3 years, and building the, and then the next thing is hopefully you'll become my client and then you'll hire me for freelancers because I gave you a job to begin with. But you know, it's all full circle. But again, it's building that network and getting enough work to continue to freelance, or be like, okay, I get it. When I started with the creative group, I was making, you know, X amount of money, whether it's $30 or $100. It depends on what level or whatever it is. But the point being is, I'm a middleman. But I also did all of that overhead for you and just helping you build that experience. So I will not lie, you will probably make more money billing on your own, but you also don't have a voice out there navigating through some of those circumstances and having those conversations and knocking and asking the hard questions. Or they'll come to me and they'll be like, yeah, I want to pay this rate for this. I'm like, I can't even pay someone that. Like, this is what it is. So educating them on where the market is. And while, yes, we are in San Francisco, I've been with Creative Group for 10 years. I worked through that recession, and I'm telling you, it almost isn't crazy how much it's changed to the radical other end of the spectrum. And should it never be this glorious, there's a reality check coming. I'm telling you that right now. A big, and it's not a paycheck, it's a reality check. And it will come. And so be humble, and you know, don't get greedy, but be proud, be confident, and have your value. But again, we are really good advocates in helping you. Kelly and Gabby and I, we spend a lot of our days talking about rates and why this is, and I get it. I've got people who come in and they want to make $100K and bill $100 an hour. I'm like, okay, well, the math on that doesn't match, but let's talk about why this. And they're like, oh my God. I'm like, yeah, but you don't have any of those costs and any of those worries on the hourly through me. I get it. If the client wants to convert you to full-time, granted, we'll go for that $100K, totally fine. So again, if you guys don't know, I encourage you, you know, we're partners. We're not your employers. I'm not gonna make promises I can't keep, but we're certainly a voice to help you navigate through some of those like uncharted waters and difficult conversations, and also have your back to let you know that, hey, you know what? That's great that they offered you $25 an hour, but you're worth this. So it's also on the flip side. So it's having the conversations both ways. It'll be like, come back down to earth with me, or have a little more confidence, and chartering through those. And just so you guys do know, like, when you do partner with us, again, having the invoicing, the overhead, just until you can get enough on your own feet to understand what it's like to be the freelancer. And you may, you know, I often will tell freelancers, you go and you freelance somewhere. If you meet that creative director or that person goes on to the next opportunity, you're free to go. I'm like, you can do whatever you want. But again, by opening yourself up, all you're doing is giving yourself more resources and more opportunity and a partnership. So don't be afraid to help, you know, have like, whether it's us or another resource or whatever, but kind of getting through those first year. And I think we are really successful with a lot of people who come out of school because you don't know how to have those conversations or where to go. And I work on a lot of, while it's great, I don't focus on all of these high level, super amazing. I do a lot of it, but I do everything. So I do anything from, I need a junior designer that I don't care if they have a less than a year of experience, I'll teach them, to super senior, complete rebrands, you know, that they know the project's gonna go away, so they don't need an in-house full-time person, or they want a fresh eyes to work with them. You know, I did that, I brought in an interim creative director for 4 months into Healthline Networks, because they went through a rebrand, and they worked with my creative director, but he's like, I need one, someone else with all the other business, but they wanted fresh eyes, they wanted fresh ideas, they wanted the collaboration. So, there's a job for everybody, there's all different levels, and I think when you only are privy to what you see, a lot of things are not posted, and until you have those client relationships or the referrals to get you there, you don't know about the opportunities. And to Tina's point, there's a lot of opportunity in San Francisco for design.
Could I have one very quick thing?
Very quickly.
Okay, so when you find the price that you feel very comfortable telling a client, you may have to discount it. But let them know that you're discounting it. So when I did my work for Juice Shop, I was at the same time doing other work for a really big tech company and charging them twice as much. But Juice Shop knew that. They knew that they were getting more value than they were paying for. And for clients who really can pay for it, don't reduce the price unless you're also removing something that you're offering them.
So, the last area we're going to cover is the certainties in life, death and taxes. So, very quickly, healthcare. How do you cover healthcare?
Okay, really just super fast about what Lisa was saying. Working with her, you get paid weekly. If you establish a relationship with a business as another business, most often you must accept their billing terms. That means net 30 at best, net 45 is very common, and so is net 60. 2 months, you guys, 2 months from when you bill, that's a really big distinction. And there's lots of variables that you would want to consider as you embark on freelance, but you know, waiting even a month and a half or 2 months to get paid, it can be very difficult. Yeah. Healthcare, I have Obamacare, I pay my healthcare myself. When I worked for myself many years ago, as I mentioned, I've done this twice now. The first time I was living here in San Francisco, and you could get like $119 health plan, you know, just for catastrophic coverage. Then in New York, when I lived in New York and was working for myself again, I got health insurance through the Freelancers Union. I don't think that Freelancers Union is not here, but they negotiated better healthcare rate, and then now I just do it myself.
We have to do W-2s and on top of that.
Yeah, I didn't realize that the creative group provides a healthcare package, and that's unheard. I would never have imagined that, so I think that's pretty cool. But the big thing is taxes, because they'll creep up on you. As a freelancer, you're going to be paying a whole lot more. So save a lot.
Do you guys know you have to pay estimated taxes?
Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. Yeah, so when you work for yourself, you have to pay estimated taxes. That means you tell the government what you think you're gonna make in that year, and then 3 times out of the year, not 4, it's kind of weird, you have to pay against those projected earnings.
Before you've earned the money.
Before you earn the money, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you take
Oh, the estimated taxes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so when thinking about money, I always talk about like the bottom line, which is like, what do you need to survive? And I think that it becomes like your rent plus your food plus maybe you have student loans or whatever other things that you must need to pay. And then you subtract like 40%, 30 to 40%, which is how much you'll be paying in taxes, and that's a lot of money. Yeah, and you can pay once annually, but that sucks because then you have to pay a fee for not paying quarterly, and then that's like a large chunk of money you pay once a year. Or you can pay quarterly estimated taxes. But I pay my healthcare out of pocket, and it sucks, but I always just look at it as like the price to pay to be free.
Sacrifice.
Yeah.
Or marry somebody who has a full-time job,
Marry
perhaps in an
somebody.
agency.
Yes, marry somebody.
When I was freelancing,
You say I'm married already.
Are you asking me?
Thanks for the offer.
when I freelanced, it was back in the day that I could go to esurance.com and for $100 a month. I was like, awesome, and it was like pretty decent. So I did my own on that. It's a question that we get often. Same with unemployment and same with, overhead. So just, again, for us, we do offer a benefit package. Is it going to be the ideal end-all be-all? I don't know. It's a personal choice. I don't know your family situation or your health situation. But it certainly is something that is provided. Again, like I said, if people in 18-month contracts, we do offer direct deposit. If you can do 1099, but most of ours are W-2. So again, just alleviating that, and whether you're on 10 different projects at the end of the year, I do think that a freelancer can appreciate this. You get one W-2 from me for every single project you did. So you can see at the end of all of that. So again, partnership, some benefits. I look at this, especially as you're kind of navigating through some of the uncharted waters at the beginning, but there are benefits and direct deposit.
And then just to wrap up, could each of you give, like in about 10 seconds, the one thing that you want people to take away from tonight? Your condensed thoughts on freelancing into one tip, Ariana.
I think if you're here tonight, you're here because you're curious about maybe doing this for yourself. And so I just want you to take one step forward. I don't care what it is. One step. Whatever step is easiest for you, whatever step you're most comfortable with, whatever it is. Put one project online. Design a logo for yourself if you want to. Tell 3 people that you're thinking about doing this. 3 other people than who you meet tonight, or even
Not your
people
boss.
that you meet tonight. But maybe not your boss. Okay, that's fine.
Okay. I would say, if you're here, you also probably are interested in freelancing because you just want to do great design. You just want to do what you love to do. But although it's a personal process, you are a business. That is what I would say to take away with.
Tina?
I would say be empowered to be free and take a leap. If you're thinking about making the leap, just commit. Like, that's really sometimes all it takes. Yeah, feel empowered to be free. It's fun. It's awesome. Be your own boss.
I would say, I use the term go big or go home, but you can't do it halfway. So if you're gonna do it all the way, invest, believe, utilize the network, like do everything we talked about. You can't just pick and choose what part of this you're like, oh, I don't like taxes, I'm not good with math, I'm not gonna deal with that part. But I'm gonna go freelance because I wanna travel. Like, you've gotta do both. So go big, and if you're gonna do it, go all the way, because halfway is just, every challenge you were already afraid of is only gonna be that much more challenging.
So, if you want to continue the conversation, we're going to go around to, and the panelists are always welcome, Murphy's Pub, go downstairs, turn right, then turn right again. Big red neon sign says Murphy's Pub. Can't miss it. It's an Irish bar. You can never guess why I suggest there. I'd like you to all put your hands together for our wonderful panelists tonight. Thank you very much. And good luck with you.